This is a really interesting movie on several levels. Firstly, it sounds like an old cliché, but this really is the first movie to do most of the things that you've probably already figured out just from the title. This is the first horror movie to feature an almost entirely teenage cast with a teenager as the main character who turns into a werewolf. It started a craze of teen horror movies in 1957 that continues to this very day. It also was an incredibly successful movie. It was shot on a shoestring budget of around $150,000, but it made back around $2 million at the box office, showing that this sort of thing could be incredibly profitable. It also starred a very young and practically unrecognizable, at least to me, Michael Landon in the starring role. And it was not at all what I expected. I had heard this film called campy many times, and I expected it to be, well, campy. Now, I'm not saying that this movie plays it completely straight, but most of the unintentional humor is not derived from the film being cheap or of poor quality, but just from how dated it is. It fits pretty well into 1957, but I think that it's a fairly realistic portrayal, even the ridiculous singing part. Remember, this is when television was a luxury, so 15-year-olds considered it a real fun time to stand around singing. Anyway, Michael Landon plays Tony, a troubled teen with explosive anger issues who's constantly getting into fights and getting into trouble with the law. He's not a bad kid, he does well in school, he treats his girlfriend well, and he's a great kid at home with his widowed father, but he has a real anger management problem and challenges people to fights at the slightest provocation. After getting into a fight with a kid much bigger than him, who tried what he could to avoid the situation, the local sheriff refers him to a psychiatrist, saying that he needs help, but he ignores this. He doesn't want to be seen as what he calls a flip or a crazy person. He goes to a Halloween party with his girlfriend, which mostly consists of the kids playing music, dancing, and pretending that rock and roll doesn't exist yet. Then they start playing pranks on each other, but it's all pretty good-natured and harmless. You know, the type of crap your dad thinks is hilarious. Bucket of water on the door, that kind of shit. Anyway, when somebody sneaks up behind him with a noisemaker, he goes ape and sucker punches the guy, and when he sees how much that freaks everyone out, he finally realizes that he does need help, so he agrees to go see the psychiatrist. The issue? This dude is actually a mad scientist who sees Tony as a vessel for his sick experiments, and he turns him into a werewolf through a mixture of injecting him with chemicals and hypnotizing him into thinking that he's a werewolf. He turns and kills people and is recognized by his clothing, so he starts being hunted by the police, but he manages to evade them. He goes to the shrink for help, but he winds up turning again and killing the guy and going on one final rampage. There isn't a lot of werewolf action in the movie, but what's there is actually done pretty well. Most of the film focuses not on the killings, but on the actual character, kind of like the Wolfman, though it's not as refined as that. The acting ranges from being fairly impressive for a low-budget film to hammy, but not so much as to be a distraction. The singing part, yeah, it's absolutely stupid, but take it as a sign of the time and not as an attempt to be silly. Overall, you could do a lot worse for a werewolf movie, but you could also do better. I enjoyed it, but mostly as a that was better than I expected it to be type of thing. So overall, not bad at all. I'm going to give this one a very respectable 7 out of 10.